Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahamsa, Parudikacharya Astotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Parudikacharya Astotar Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavanda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Well, Tapas, I think you need to open that door. I just came off my walk and I'm still steaming. And somehow they took the there's one. There's a fan out of position. Anyway, we'll be all right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Page 613. On this 30th day of June 2020, in SanDiego, reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are on the last verse of the 15th chapter, entitled The Yoga of the Supreme Person. Text 20, page 613. Iti guyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanagha etad buddha buddhiman syat kritakrityashta bharata iti guyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanagha etad buddha buddhiman syat kritakrityashta bharata iti guyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanagha etad buddha buddhiman syat kritakrityashta bharata. Iti guyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanagha etad buddha buddhiman syat kritakrityashta bharata. Alex. Iti guyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanaga tam buddha buddhiman syat kritikrityasta bharata. Tapas, you want to try? Iti guyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanaga etad buddha buddhiman syat kritikrityasta bharata. Iti, thus, guyatamam, the most confidential, shastram, revealed scripture, idam, this, uktam, disclosed, maya, by me, anagha, O sinless one, etat, this, buddha, understanding, buddhiman, intelligent, syat, one becomes, kritikrityaha, the most perfect in his endeavors, cha, and bharata, O son of Bharat. Translation. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. Purport. The Lord clearly explains here that this is the substance of all revealed scriptures, and one should understand this as it is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus one will become intelligent and perfect in transcendental knowledge. In other words, by understanding this philosophy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engaging in his transcendental service, everyone can become freed from all contaminations of the modes of material nature. Devotional service is a process of spiritual understanding. Wherever devotional service exists, the material contamination cannot coexist. Devotional service to the Lord and the Lord himself are one and the same because they are spiritual. Devotional service takes place within the internal energy of the Supreme Lord. The Lord is said to be the sun, and ignorance is called darkness. Where the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. Therefore, whenever devotional service is present under the proper guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, there is no question of ignorance. Everyone must take to this consciousness of Krishna and engage in devotional service to become intelligent and purified. Unless one comes to this position of understanding Krishna and engages in devotional service, however intelligent he may be in the estimation of some common man, he is not perfectly intelligent. The word anagha, by which Arjuna is addressed, is significant. Anagha means, O sinless one. Anagha, O sinless one, means that unless one is free from all sinful reactions, it is very difficult to understand Krishna. One has to become free from all contamination, all sinful activities. Then he can understand. But devotional service is so pure and potent that once one is engaged in devotional service, he automatically comes to the stage of sinlessness. While one is performing devotional service in the association of pure devotees in full Krishna consciousness, there are certain things which require to be vanquished altogether. The most important thing one has to surmount is weakness of the heart. The first fall down is caused by the desire to lord it over material nature. Thus one gives up the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord. The second weakness of the heart is that one increases the propensity to lord it over material nature. He becomes attached to matter and the possession of matter. As one increases the propensity to lord over material nature, he becomes attached to matter and the possession of matter. The problems of material existence are due to these weaknesses of the heart. In this chapter, the first 5 verses describe the process of freeing oneself from these weaknesses of heart. And the rest of the chapter, from the 6th verse through the end, discusses Purushottama Yoga. Thus end the Bhagavad purports to the 15th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of Purushottama Yoga, the yoga of the Supreme Person. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Milatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance to him and all members of Sri Parampara. So Guyatamam. Now that should ring a bell. Remember the end of the 9th chapter. The 9th chapter is called the most confidential knowledge, isn't it? Let's see. the most confidential knowledge. And at the end of that chapter, what do we find? Okay, he doesn't mention Guhyatamam here, but in reference to the same verse at the end of the 18th chapter, he uses that same terminology. Guhyatara, Guhyatara, and Guhyatamam. Confidential, more confidential, and most confidential. So the most confidential knowledge, let's see what it says here. 65. Before we get to 65, 1865, Krishna says in 64, Sarva Guhyatamam Bhuya Shuname Padamam Bacha Istotame Judamiti Tato Bhakshami Tehitam. Because you're my very dear friend, I am speaking to you my supreme instruction, the most confidential knowledge of all. Hear this from me, for it is for your benefit. Bhuya, again. So he's speaking to him again, which also refers back to this, saying the same thing at the end of the 9th chapter. And what is that great secret? So confidential. Manmana bhava madbhakto mujjajimam namaskaru mamai vaishati yuktva mama atmana matparayana. Or a little variation in the, just think of me, become my devotee, offer your obeisance to me, worship me, and then you'll certainly come to me. I promise you this because you're my dear friend. So here he says, iti guhyatamam. He's referring back immediately to the previous verse. And that is where he says, I am that supreme person. If you read when you read this chapter, and we'll do a quick review, it's a short chapter, but very important. He's speaking about the third person. He's speaking of the Lord in the third person. Remember I mentioned that in the previous class? I don't think you were here. But he starts out with the whole analogy of the upside down banyan tree, an analogy of this material world. And it's immovable, the leaves of the Vedas, and then the branches go upward and downward, nourished by the three modes of nature, twigs of the opposite. So it's very complex. It's extremely entangling, and in our effort to get to improve our situation within the tree, we just go from branch to branch, and we don't really make any progress in getting out of it. So then, what's the key element? Asanga shastrena dudena chitva. One has to cut it off at the root. The root of the tree is material desire, which is a perverted reflection of our spiritual desire to serve Krishna. That's our pure situation. But we have been given this tree, and it's been developed over countless births with our unlimited desires that we've developed in different species, different planets, all different things. It's unlimited. Until we come to the point of realizing we have to cut it off at the root by the process of detachment. Trying to go from one branch to another is not going to work. We have to cut the whole thing off at the root. Asanga shastrena, the weapon of detachment. And then we have to search out that place from which, whence going, you never come back. That place from which is the origin of everything. And there, surrender to the Supreme Person from whom everything has emanated since time immemorial. The Supreme Person, that's Krishna. He's speaking. But he's speaking it all in the third person now. That Supreme Person, And he goes on like that. And he describes the spiritual world. He gives a wonderful summary of the process of surrender, because the whole thing is surrender to that person. That's what we haven't done all these births. We've been trying to solve our material problems by various means and maximize our pleasure. But we keep getting defeated by time, by the circumstances, just by the nature of the material world. You cannot find a place in this world, no matter how hard you try, that is secure and full of unlimited happiness. The happiness always is tinged. Even if you're on Brahmaloka, you live for 311 trillion years, it's still temporary. And it's still there's still inebrieties. Remember that famous word, inebrieties? There's negativities. The heavenly planets. Oh, you live for so long, and with so many beautiful women, and you don't get old, you don't get sick. But the demons are out there trying to get your planet, your position. There's so many fights, battles between the demigods and the demons in the Bhagavatam. Sometimes the demigods lose. That was the whole thing, and they prayed to Krishna. He came as Vamana, got the land back, but they're still worried that they're going to lose it. Indra is always worried someone's going to take his position. He sends some nymph down to seduce the yogis, getting powerful. It's not secure. So, but if we get to the spiritual world, this is the place where you don't have to return. And he gives a little description. There's no sun there, no need of sun or moon or fire, electricity. Once you go, you don't come back. So it's unique. But then he mentioned, this is my supreme abode. He does put himself in the first person here. And he describes then the situation of the living entity in this material world, but going from body to body. He gives this nice little description of transmigration. You know, he did it in the 2nd chapter, now he's doing it again here, did some in the 8th chapter. And so we keep getting different sets of senses, a certain set of eyes and ears and nose and touch and all these different senses. And then we get addicted to a certain set of sense gratification. Vishayanupasevate. This is text number 9, we're reviewing here. The foolish cannot understand how this is taking place. And everybody's foolish. I mean, who in this modern world really understands this process of transmigration, the eternality of the soul? Even like in the Western world, you have still many people who profess to be Christians, you know. But as far as I understand, they all believe that they came into being when they were born. And they've got this one lifetime to go back to Godhead or to go to heaven. Otherwise, the other place, right? Isn't that the whole idea? But that completely misunderstands. You have to understand we lived before. Our present situation is a result of things we've done before which we forget. That changes the whole calculation. Because otherwise, you can easily fall into the trap of the problem of evil, that theodicy that you discussed one Sunday night. If we all come into being when we appear, you know, our birthday is really our birthday when we, you know, in this world, then how is God just? He just throws the dice, and some you know have congenital diseases. They're born in Yemen, get bombed, you know, their children, and others are born in you know, United States in some rich family. What's the point? You know, there's no rhyme or reason. You know, how is it a just God? You know, this is why people discard this thing, the belief in God, because they don't have the science of understanding what's going on. So the first step is, as Krishna describes it, this process of transmigration, that we have been, you know, we're as eternal as Krishna. We never came into being. We have always been. But we've come into this material world at a certain point. We established our, I think you were here when I pointed out the verse at the end of the 7th chapter that Prabhupada would cite from Bhagavad Gita, describing how we got here. I think he refers to it in that last purport too. Itcha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena bharata sarvabhutani sammoham sarge yanti parantapa. Sarge yanti can simply mean come into the creation. You know, yanti means to go into the sarga. This is sarga. So how does it happen? Itcha dvesha. Two things, desire and hate, or desire and repulsion. You know, for what? Desire to enjoy separate from Krishna. And with that desire comes the not wanting to serve Krishna. That's the dvesha part, hating to serve Krishna. So as soon as you establish that attitude in the spiritual world, you're a disturbance to all the other devotees. You need a separate place. You see, that's why. So Krishna gives us a separate place, hoping we'll be reformed. He accompanies us as the super soul. We were reading that last night, right? He's always with us in the heart, giving us our intelligence, giving us our remembrance, our knowledge, and our forgetfulness. This is in text 15, perhaps the most quoted verse in this chapter. So he's not abandoning us, but he's arranging for us to experience suffering along with our effort, you know, as a result of our efforts to enjoy separately. And he's providing at every step, sometimes more than others, when he comes personally, which he did only 5,000 years ago, just a snap of a finger compared to these, you know, time frames we're talking about. He'll personally speak the Bhagavad Gita and establish Dharma where there is adharma by annihilating the miscreants and arranging for Yudhishthira and other great kings to come up, you know, and rule. So then when there is Dharma established and Krishna's words and his teachings, which he speaks personally or through agents such as Vyasadeva, he's also an incarnation, then knowledge can be dominant. And that's light, as described in this purport. It's just like the sunlight, right? That's enlightenment. Without the knowledge, you're helpless. It's just like you're walking blind. There's no possibility of solving the real problems of life. You have to have access to this transcendental knowledge from the right source, given by someone who's actually practicing, not some academic or something. So Prabhupada struggled so hard, and he did that. He established the institution of ISKCON, and he gave the books of real knowledge, so that we can then change our behavior and move toward that process of surrender. It begins with surrender. Humility is kind of surrender, but ultimate surrender is giving up every tinge of material desire. So he's describing this process of transmigration, and he emphasizes that those who have jnana chakshush, the eyes of knowledge, informed by hearing the Vedas, the Shastra, they can see how all this is taking place, and they understand. So the yogis can sometimes see, but those whose minds are not developed cannot see. But those who take to hearing, but those whose minds are not developed, let's see that. I think maybe that's a different verse. I think that's in the 13th chapter. So then after this, he describes how Krishna says, I enter into everything. I'm supporting the planets. I'm making the moon, nourish the vegetables. I'm supplying the light of the sun. I make the planets float. I'm providing everything. Prabhupada quotes this verse, Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam eko bahunam yovedadati kaman. This is one of the first verses I ever memorized. That's half of the verse. There's another half, which is not so famous, which simply means there are innumerable eternal conscious living beings. Nityo is singular, Nityanam is plural. Chaitana is singular, Chaitananam is plural. So, and out of all of those eternal living beings, conscious beings, there's one, Eko, of the Buhuna, of the many, is Yovedadati Kaman, who's providing the necessities for all the others. And that's exactly what Krishna is describing here. I'm, making the planets float, I'm providing the sun, and through the sun, the rain's coming and everything. So I'm accompanying these wayward souls, I'm providing their nourishment, I'm giving everything, and I'm giving knowledge by which they can get out, I'm sorry? The one, Nityo Nityana? This is from the Upanishads, and I can give it. It's in your list, Udama Shlokas, for sure. So then comes the most quoted verse in the chapter, Sarvasya Chaha Mridi Sannavishto, that Krishna says, I am in the heart of everyone. Sarvasya Mridi Sannavishto. And from me, Mataha, come, Smriti Jnana Apohanam, remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness also. So that means in every organism, a conscious living being, there's a living soul in there, and then there's some kind of body. Krishna is providing the intelligence by which they can fulfill their needs and get their needs. Even the animals and the plants and the birds and the insects and everything. The super soul is there. They have rudimentary consciousness. But in the human form, he's providing all the necessities, but he's also giving us the big brain by which we can understand transcendental philosophy and get out of the imprisonment of birth and death. So he compiles the Vedas, as he says here, or Vedanta Sutra. He's the knower of the Vedas. So it all leads back to him. And then he describes there's these two categories of beings. There's the chara, those who are cut off, those who have fallen from the spiritual. And the akshara, those who are in the spiritual world. They sometimes described as nitya siddha or nitya mukta, and we're described as nitya baddha. And this is a whole subject matter of discussion. Because there has to be a qualification. What does nitya mean? If nitya means eternal in the past and in the future, then how can we be nitya baddha? Because what's the point of practicing Krishna consciousness? It's impossible to go back to Godhead. In other words, up until now, the nitya is qualified in both directions. Because it does. The understanding that Srila Prabhupada gives us is that we came here. That's what Chadvesha means. There was a time, or a point at which our material life began. But Prabhupada describes it that it began out of this universe. This desire was in the spiritual world, where there is no time. And so, then we came to this world where time is measured. Now, it may be a very, 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 very long time. Prabhupada uses that four varies. And therefore, it seems like it's eternal. But there was a point which we came. It's kind of difficult because we're not used to thinking of a place where there's no time, But everything that happens there is beyond the realm of our past and future. We can't calculate, when it was. So, but the Nitya Buddhas can also become Nitya Muktas again. That's the idea. That's what it means to go back to Godhead. And Krishna says several places, Yadgat Vananda Vartante, right in this chapter. Once going there, one never comes back. And you can say, well, that makes sense. Once burned, twice shy. Yeah. I have a vague memory of that. I'm not going to try that again. That's the idea. But there's souls in the spiritual world who may, that's how we got here. That's Prabhupada's understanding. So there's two. There's the Chara and the Akshara. The Akshara, they're Nitya Muktas, and the Chara are those who break and free. Chara means one of the meanings is to cut off. Prabhupada uses fallible and infallible, which means fallible and infallible. And then, besides those two, text 17, Uttama Purusha Stvanyat is another soul there who is Uttama Purusha, who's known as the Paramatma, or the Supreme Soul, the Supreme Self. This isn't actually the Paramatma in this material world. The imperishable Lord himself, who has entered the three worlds and is maintaining them. Now he's pulled back into third person. You see? It's kind of a dramatic device. Who is this person? Who is this, And then, of course, he says, I am transcendental. The next verse, getting to the end of the chapter, because I am transcendental, I'm beyond both fallible and infallible. I'm not one of the Akshara Akshara. I'm in a different category. Because I'm the greatest, I'm celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that Supreme Person. So that's the title of the chapter, Yoga to the Supreme Person. And one who understands me as that, Yomam Eva Asamudho, who's not bewildered, Janati Purushottamam, understand me to be that Supreme Personality of Godhead, he knows everything. Now this was brought up to Prabhupada in the morning walk, because there was a whole debate, believe it or not, on the internet, and this is when the internet was just starting. It was like 2000. I mean, it was starting getting going where people had their little blogs and things. Just what Prabhupada's status was in terms of knowing everything. Because there's a Trikalagya described with Narada Muni, and his jiva after all. And so, what does it mean? Here it says, someone who knows Krishna to be the Supreme Person knows everything. Sa sarvavid. It's easy to understand. He understands everything. What is that everything? Well, it's not the same everything that Krishna knows. There's different degrees of omniscience is this whole thing. So Prabhupada is not omniscient. He many times declined, said, no. But what he knows, more than we know, is Krishna perfectly. He knows what Krishna tells him from the heart, which is a lot more than we can access. And that's why even in classes and things, Prabhupada would, answer a question that you hadn't asked, that you brought to the, it's troubling you, but you hadn't got the point. He's answering it in the lecture. He revealed many times that he was at had a different level of understanding. But, he didn't know everything that was going on in the Gurukuls. We had a problem with the Gurukul where there was some child abuse going on. He didn't know that. When he heard about any little instance of it, he was furious, and it's not like he pretended not to know until he was told. He didn't know certain things, and but one knows everything necessary for going back to Godhead, and one knows certainly that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God. This is what the vid means, sarva vid, and he worships me, bhajati mam, in all respects, sarva bhavena. This is the key. So that is the most confidential knowledge. That Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we're his eternal servants, and that we should worship him without any reservation and attain pure love for him. That's the greatest secret. one who understands that will become wise and endeavors will know perfection. So this is the 15th chapter in a nutshell. And a very important chapter. And there's certainly some of these verses, especially Mamai Vangso Jiva Loke, which is text 7, which Prabhupada always used against the Mayavadis. Because they're trying to say that the living entity can merge and lose his identity, his separateness from Krishna. But Mama Eva Angsha, Mama Vangsho, Mama Vangsha, Jiva Loke. In this world of jivas, all of them are my Angsha, my fragmental parts. They're called Jiva Bhutas. The jivas, they're not called jivas in the spiritual world. In the material world, they're called jivas. And Sanatana. Now that Sanatana, Prabhupada, always takes me in. And they're eternally so. We're eternally Angsha. That's our identity. We cannot become the infinite Brahman. We are eternally part and parcel. So that line he uses often to combat the Mayavadi idea that we merge and we lose our individual identity. So that's a very important verse. And the second one I mentioned, Sarvasya Chahamriti Sannivishto, that I'm in everyone's heart is the super soul. For me come knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. For all the knowledge of the Vedas is leading to me. Vedaischa sarva ahameva Veda. I am to be known. I'm meant to be known by all of the Vedas, even though it may not seem like that directly, but it is. I'm the compiler of the Vedas, and I'm the knower of the Vedas. And then the third one, I think that's quoted also, is the description of the spiritual world. That the Bhasyate Suryo probably quote. So it's important to understand this chapter, and then leads into the 16th chapter, which is about the demons, which we can begin unless there's any questions or comments.
Sorry, I mean, you must have explained this several times just now, but maybe it still isn't clear to me. So, but the Akshara, the infallible, that's referring to the Nitya Muktas or only Brahma?
No, Nitya Muktas.
Okay. So the Kshara can become Akshara, but in the sense that like they can become, Jivas can become,
Here so we can regain our Akshara quality.
Okay. Yeah. So I had two other questions. So one is, you mentioned this before, I think. So in this verse, Bhadata, son of Bhadata. But
which number is it?
This verse and another verse is 20 at the very end.
20,
Bhadata, and you said
there's
that
a lot of them. Yeah.
More technically, it's not son of Bhadata. It's Sion because it's descendant.
Yeah.
Because
Prabhupada uses that term sometimes.
So how many?
How many generations?
Yeah, do you remember how that goes?
I don't know. A lot.
Okay. But so son isn't used in that way generally, right? It's
Not
never
generally.
used like that. Okay.
No.
The question was, so I didn't forget it. These two, in the last purport of this, last paragraph in this purport, the first fall down is the.
You're talking about the last verse?
Yeah, last verse, last paragraph. So the first fall down is, there's two. So
that's
one
where
is
he's going. Itcha Dvesha.
Yeah,
that's
so these two, this is specifically coming from which verse? Like the Lord, one, the Lord over material nature, and then
728. 728. I believe it's 728.
Okay.
Let's just check. It may be 27. I never learned the numbers so well. I probably should review those.
Because the first fall down is to desire to lord it over material nature. The second, weakness of heart, is that as one increases a propensity to lord it over, he becomes attached to matter and the possession of matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
He departs a little bit from this verse. Mm-hmm. But when you say the first, that's why I thought of that verse. Mm-hmm. The first fall down is the desire to lord it over. That's the itcha. Mm-hmm. And then the second weakness is that one increases the propensity to lord it over, and he becomes attached. And and at the same time, you become averse. As soon as you desire to enjoy separately, you become averse to serving Krishna. And that's why the training Bhakti Yoga, you accept it as your duty, even though you're maybe averse to it on one level, through the austerities and things. But this is where human beings, go over the animals. The animals, whatever feels good now, and then they work by instinct. But we have the intelligence who can project and say, okay, I know that if I do this, it may be a little austere right now, but I'll benefit down the road. On the material level, it happens all the time, the education, all kinds of things. But spiritually, for your eternal benefit. So we have to reverse that. We have to become averse to sense gratification and desirous, as Prabhupada would say, service to Krishna. There's this wonderful little phrase. I encountered it again. I've been reading through the Bhagavad in the second canto, and Jiva Goswami sums up the whole ethos of bhakti. Let's see if I can remember it. Yeah. Bhajaniya Parama Purusha Sukha Matra Swasukatvam. And that is meaning that Bhajaniya means worshipable. Parama Purusha, the Supreme Person, the worshipable Supreme Person. Parama Purusha, Bhajaniya Parama Purusha Sukha Matra, only the happiness of that Supreme Person. Sukha Matra Swasukatvam, taking one's own happiness solely in the happiness of the Supreme Person. Now this is like a whole 180-degree difference on this material life. First of all, material life means, all right, maybe there's a God, maybe there's not a God, but I got a lot of work to do, and I'll think of that on the weekend or something. In other words, it's not central to your every thought and activity. But that's what pure bhakti means. Everything you do, every thought, everything you hear is related to this overarching motive of pleasing the Supreme Lord. And how do we know what pleases the Supreme Lord? Oh, then we have to have a teacher. We have to have someone who's already connected, who's living the Shastra, and who, when he speaks, has credibility, because you can see he's leading his life according. He or she is leading his life according. So then we come under that practical guidance. Here's how you live your life. Here's how to stay clean. All of the things that involve purifying one's existence. But that's the ultimate. You think, well, what about the gopis? Exactly. Their entire being was just focused on pleasing Krishna. And why did they run out into the forest? Krishna's calling them. Well, it looked like an expression of lust. But it's actually they're obsessed, with going out and pleasing Krishna, doing what he wants and being, that was the call, what it meant. And this is very nicely explained. The 4th chapter of the Adi Lila. This is a key chapter in Prabhupada's books, describing the difference between lust and love. Lust is self-centered. Now, what is that verse? I memorized it again. Atmandriya priti vancha. Atmandriya priti vancha tare bali kam. Krishnendriya priti itcha dare prem nam. The difference between prema and kama. Now Prabhupada makes the point at the end of the 3rd chapter that they're related, this prema and kama. Kama is simply prema that has been adulterated by contact with the modes of nature, material energy. Meaning that this ardent desire to enjoy by pleasing Krishna has now been perverted so that we forgot Krishna and we're trying to enjoy ourselves through the material energy. But it's hopeless. We can't do it. We can't enjoy like Krishna. And so we're constantly frustrated. In one life, many lives. But turning back, just like this book, all right, we're having this little class, and we know, and I know, I've been doing this so that this is what Krishna wants. This is what Prabhupada wants. He wants us to read his book, read Krishna's book, and to read his commentary, and to try to mold our life according to it. And therefore these classes are here, try to understand and try to, adopt the principles. It goes on regularly, because the mind is very fickle. So we need, So this is pleasing to Krishna. We're at different levels of understanding, focus, whatever it may be. But still, the attempt is pleasing to Krishna. So this is bhakti. And one thing that it does is that we're not doing a million other things that could lead to our utter degradation. And that there's so many things in Krishna, like the kirtans, everything is like that. So at one point, we'll feel about this Bhagavad Gita, as Prabhupada talks about. You can read it every day, 10 times a day. You won't get tired, Or like this story of Lord Chaitanya in South India. I think it was Rangachetra, and so he goes inside the temple, and there's this Brahmin reading the Bhagavad Gita. And this Brahmin, he's a Brahmin, but somehow he's an illiterate. He can't read, but he's trying to read, and Prabhupada gives a imitation. Reading means reciting. He's reciting. He says gong gong gong. He can't pronounce. So some of the people who have seen him, many times, the other Brahmins, they're making fun of him and stuff. But Lord Chaitanya comes and asks him, "What are you doing?" And he sees, he's not making fun. So he said, "Well, my spiritual master told me to read the Bhagavad Gita every day," meaning recite the whole thing. So I'm trying, but I'm illiterate, so I'm just doing the best I can. But Lord Chaitanya says, "Yeah, but sometimes I'm seeing your tears are coming." He said, "Yes, sometimes." He said, "Why is that?" "Well, as soon as I pick up the Bhagavad Gita, I see." Now, this was an editing thing. It's so key because the edit when it's misedited, the real meaning doesn't come out. So what it said, he said, "I see a picture." Do you know? You remember that? And it sounds like it's like he's seeing the pictures, like we see the picture here. No, he's seeing the picture in his heart, in his mind, as soon as he picks up the book. Of what? Of the scene of Krishna speaking Bhagavad Gita, that corner painting. But he's not, he's experiencing it, and he's saying, how kind Krishna is to take this role of a chariot driver for Arjuna and to teach him the Bhagavad Gita. So the whole scene is manifest to him, and he's in ecstasy as he's trying to read the Bhagavad Gita. So even though the different meanings, the words weren't coming out as it were, the ultimate meaning of the whole Bhagavad Gita, which is bring you to an ecstatic, understanding of Krishna, remembrance of Krishna. That's the whole point. So so Lord Chaitanya embraced and said, "You're the best knower of the Bhagavad Gita," implying that these foolish Brahmins who are ridiculing you are stupid. They don't understand your level, that superficially. So that's what all of this is about, is to give us the knowledge by which we can that will guide our behavior, and also inform the way in which we see ourselves in this world and others. There's so much about seeing here, right? Jnana chakshus. If you can see through the eyes of Shastra, then that changes the whole way in which you relate to the world, and the whole way in which you relate to yourself. Like I have my little doggerel that I compose, Everybody dies. This is based on a verse in Bhagavad Gita. It's doggerel. Doggerel is like rudimentary poetry. I don't usually call it that because it kind of has a bad connotation. It's transcendental book. But everybody dies. Nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body. You're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. So if someone, you catch someone's attention with that, then you can give them it's right from the Gita. Anta banta hime deha, nitya syokta sharirinaha. There's a verse like that, second chapter. That all of these bodies are temporary. Andavanti hime deha, nitya sokta sharirinaha. But the sharirinaha, the indweller body, the soul, is eternal. Nitya sokta sharirina. So that's the first thing. So every body dies. You understand? Space. Everybody dies, no doubt. But nobody dies. No soul dies. You see, it's a little play on words. So therefore, this is the first thing we have to wake up to. That changes everything, Well, how can I realize that and get, self-realization? What does that mean for my everyday life? That's what the whole teachings are about. It means everything is different. Is that all your work trying to serve this body, make it comfortable, make it happy, is a waste of time, and is just digging you a hole deeper into the world of suffering of birth and death. So we need to use the very body that we've been given, which is a vehicle of imprisonment when we try to enjoy it, and use these very senses, the very mind, the very intelligence that we have for connecting back with Krishna. And that's exactly what bhakti is. There's something to do for every sense. There's a Krishna conscious way of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and doing everything else. And when we allow ourselves, or we surrender unto training our body and our mind and everything in Krishna consciousness, then we're more and more linked with Krishna. And He enlightens us proportionally inside. This is what this whole verse, Shinvatam Sakata Krishna. When we're hearing a lot, in the proper frame of mind with ardent hearing, really concentrating and taking the sound in. Krishna from within, He purifies. And eventually, what's the last verse? Vidyate vidya grantis, chidyante sarva sankshaya, chiyante chasya karmani, Drishta eva atmanishvare. So it says, all the knots in the heart tying you to this world, material desires, they're cut. That's a sangasha strain, Dridhenachin. Chidyante sarvash sankshaya, all your doubts are eliminated. And then all your karma is eliminated, and you see the Lord, you see God within yourself, and you also understand and you see your own eternal form in relation to Krishna. That's right there. In fact, Prabhupada chose to quote that verse and the previous 4 verses in his song, Markane Bhagavad Dharma, which is really a classic. You know, he arrives in September 15th or 17th, I think it is. It's 1965, after a difficult journey across the sea, you can imagine. Maybe no. And he gets off the ship. You know, it was difficult being on the ship. He got off the ship, took a walk, and he's in Boston now. You know, all the big buildings and everything. Gets back on the ship, and then he writes his poem, Bengali, the classic. He says, well, you brought me here now, my Lord. This paraphrasing, of course. You know, I know you have some reason for bringing me here, but I don't know how I'm going to convince these people. You'll have to please make my power of speaking such that they can understand, you know. And you brought me, and then he quotes these verses in the 1, 2, 17, 18, 19, or 18, 19, 20, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 of the second chapter, first canto. And they're the essence of the whole thing, is that if you hear nicely Krishna's message given by the proper source, you'll become purified. Nashtapraya shabadrishu, all these abodras and wanted things that are clogging your heart, they're cleansed away, and when they're somewhat cleansed away, you become fixed in devotion. Nishta, we chant this verse every morning. I chant before class, you know. Regular attendance in classes of Bhagavatam. And then the lower modes are transcended. You become fixed in goodness and then pure goodness. And then evam prasanna manaso Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga. By this Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga, you become naturally joyful. You know, a natural bliss starts to come out regularly. You know, you see, and vijnana, you get direct perception of the Lord within the heart and outside. And then this verse I chanted, where you actually see Krishna, you know, within and without, and you're purified. So this is this is the middle of his poem. Before he had one follower, he spoke to one person in America. But he's taking inspiration from that, and he's saying, well, if you can make my power of speaking, you know, adequate, then I can give this message, and this hearing can go on, of course, based on the chanting of the holy name. And so this is, you know, a key inspirational poem that we can take also. And then the famous, you know, line, you know, well, you brought me here, I'm like your puppet, so if you brought me here to dance, then make me dance, so Lord, make me dance as you like, you know. And then off he was, you know, and the whole thing. And you can see, Krishna was just moving him. When you study the whole adventure, you know, Prabhupada had, he goes to Butler, you know, and it's just like this. Some alien just landed there, you know. They couldn't understand who he was, you know, but he was, you know, made an impression. But that was just to kind of to catch his breath, you know. Then he came to New York, where he really needed, you know, to be, and he had one contact, this Mishra, and you know he got some interest there, you know. But if he'd stayed uptown, it never would have happened, you know. He walked past one building and he wrote to somebody in India, well, we can buy this building in Manhattan, you can imagine, and he'd start there, you know. But he couldn't get, you know, Krishna was making it impossible for that scenario to work. He never, the guy, the devotee, I think, Padapat Sagani or something, I forget his name, but he was a rich acquaintance of Prabhupada, you know, he had something. And he said, yes, I'd like to, you know, fund a temple there in New York, you know, if I can just get the permission from the government to get that much money out. They don't want any of the money to leave the country. He couldn't get the permission, so that fell through. So he's stuck in his little office, you know, he has a few students, you know, it's like 1/10 the size of this, you know, wrong shape, you know. So he gets burglarized. Wrong shape. In other words, it's like a railway car, you know. It's not even a regular room, you know. So he's sitting in front of people. Somehow he's giving classes, you know. So then he gets burglarized, and my understanding is he had already recorded the intro to the Gita because he had this reel-to-reel machine. So he gets burglarized, and the guy steals the machine and leaves the tapes, which is the real treasure, the tape of the intro to the Bhagavad Gita. So, but Prabhupada was discouraged after that burglary, it could happen again. So that was good that he was discouraged from there. And so, because then he was open to moving, and they said, well, why don't you come downtown? That's where it's all happening, So, but where downtown? Oh, the Bowery. And he lives in a walk-up. He has to walk over the transients. But somehow he kept chanting. He had faith in the holy name. He mentioned that in there. I have faith in the holy name and in the order of my spiritual master, The whole thing is a miracle. How he was able to overcome all these difficulties to finally plant that seed in the hearts of some receptive souls. Those first 26th Avenue crew, Mukunda Maharaj, Satsu Maharaj, Brahmananda, others, Hayagriva, Kirtananda at that time. So that it's a perfect illustration of the principles in the Gita, that Krishna's there. He's in the heart. He's guiding, and especially as pure devotee, he's making arrangements because of his desire, Prabhupada's strong desire. Krishna fulfilled that desire, and the whole thing came out successful. So our chance now is to take the gift and relish it and perfect our lives and give it to others. That's our role, in following Prabhupada's train. Okay, we have 2 minutes, so I'll end with a little poem. Prabhupada, we hail the day when you appear just like a ray of Krishna's vast effulgence bright to give this blind world back its sight. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts and pray with deepest love that we may serve your lotus feet in every circumstance we meet. As years go by and books go out, we see what life is all about, to serve your mission and our Lord's by spreading wide your sacred words. As well, you want us all to strive to let those words direct our lives. This safest path will lead us home, no more in Maya's realm to roam. Gaur Premanandi. Okay, we'll stop. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.